This next guest of mine is really a fascinating lady. She is someone who has been involved commercially in, you might call it the aroma business. Someone who has been involved doing marketing and establishing different fragrances and aromas for commercial use. Perfumes by none other than Beyonce, Halle Berry, Cecil Dion, and some others. She harkens originally from the Midwest, from Arkansas. She has a childhood of memories. Now, when you think of aroma and the memories that they elicit, there's a real connection. I remember the perfume my wife wore when we first started dating. And when I smell that perfume, it brings me right back. I remember when I was a child and we had a Christmas tree that caught on fire in our house. And that smell of soot and burning inside the house. No one was hurt. We got out, but there was smoke damage everywhere. As soon as you smell that smoke damage, it takes you right back to 389 Woodlawn in Glencoe, Illinois, when you have that. And you marry this concept of aroma and the concept of how it elicits memory. And then my next guest has instituted that with some senior citizens that are suffering from dementia and Alzheimer. And she has this incredible therapy that assists and at least helps with those. And so I'm so delighted to have Ruth Sutcliffe join us.
Thank you for having me.
Did any of that make sense that I said?
Yes,
did it capture it?
It was beautifully said. And what was the perfume your wife wore?
I don't know the name, but I know the smell.
Okay.
And,
if you smell it again,
I can definitely remember it, and it's good. As I recall, it was expensive. You see, she grew up in a very wealthy home. And she grew to expect certain, luxuries that I've not been able to provide for at the level she was used to. But it's lasted 35 years, so I figure,
Does she still wear the same fragrance?
She does from time to time, but it's very expensive, as I recall.
That's okay. Joy, maybe.
That, I think it is joy. Is it joy? My wife is ignoring me. It's all good. But anyway, so tell me about what you do. And first of all, what is Beyonce like in person?
Beyonce is wonderful. She's gorgeous, very petite. I mean, she wears 5-inch, 7-inch stiletto heels when she dances around on stage, but she's really petite.
Wow.
But she's very gorgeous, beautiful skin, very nice, soft voice, very quiet. She was almost schoolgirl-like when I first met her.
Wow. And you sit down with them, and you're developing a fragrance, which is different. Like if you're developing some clothing, you look at fabrics, you look at colors, but you're in a whole different realm. That must be interesting.
It is. I mean, basically what I do is I sit next to whoever it is, Celine Dion, Beyonce, Katy Perry, and I go through a whole list of smells.
Dropping names like it's unbelievable.
Yes, of course.
Katy Perry, we had lunch yesterday.
I go through a whole, collection of smells to just try to analyze what smells they like. And then I try to incorporate those smells in some of the perfumes that we developed.
Okay, well, great. Well, now tell me, if you can, just walk me through how you got involved with Alzheimer's. And I know you're not like a medical practitioner of Alzheimer therapy. I realize that, this isn't like something you've written a PhD on. But how did that come about, and what have you seen? What has the response been when you're dealing with people that are suffering from memory loss?
Well, I have a personal story, basically. My mother had dementia and died last year from complications of dementia, and my mother-in-law has Alzheimer's. And my mother-in-law lived with us up until last year, and while I was going into the city to work, I would often come back and ask Evelyn, can you smell this? What do you think about this smell? And she could not smell very well. I mean, she did not have a sense of smell. And I started having these brainstorms as far as, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could bring back her sense of smell, or at least stimulate that part of the brain that is where the sense of smell is housed, which is the limbic system. And so because I'm a researcher, I do research for my job, for all the projects that I do, and I always try to develop something that's very interesting, innovative, very creative, and
just showing a picture of some of the seniors you've worked with in Stanford and otherwise, so that'll go up. But go ahead. Okay,
good. So I started having these brainstorms about, wouldn't it be wonderful if I could do something for these people who are losing their sense of smell? I wanted to be. Oh yes, that's at River House. It's a senior center in Coscope, Connecticut.
Okay.
And most of my smelling sessions are anywhere between 10 and 15 people.
Okay.
The other photograph was at the Greens of Greenwich.
Okay.
And I also go to Atria Senior Living in Stamford, Connecticut. Okay. So what I do is, I developed many scents, about 30 of them. Always thinking about what kinds of smells would resonate with the elderly person. Okay. And, back in let's say 50, 60 years ago, smells were very simple. Uh-huh. They weren't as complicated, and the formulas were very simple. Right. And smells and perfumes were simple as well. Mm-hmm. If your wife wore Joy, that was one of the most expensive perfumes in the world, that is combined with jasmine and rose, and it's absolutely beautiful.
And that name rings a bell. I think it was Joy.
And so guess what? Jasmine is one of the smells that I have in my kit because many women wore Joy.
Okay.
And so that goes to when I have a smelling system. I'll show you. I'll open up the kit. Okay. So it's called Essential Awakenings Smell and Memory Kit, and in there are 6 smells. Right. And what I typically do when I go into the smelling sessions is I have these little blotters. These are called blotters or paper strips. And I'm going to give you a smell test.
Okay, while you're doing that, you're seeing this is what you're doing in the different, where's this now?
That is at River House, and we are smelling cinnamon. And what I'm doing there is I'm giving these women clues. So in my kits, I have clue cards. So with cinnamon, I'll say it's something that comes on a stick. It is a spice that you use in apple pie or pumpkin pie. Okay. And it's also something that you can sprinkle on your oatmeal. Right here on this tape, I'm saying my husband sprinkles it on his oatmeal every morning because it's supposed to be very healthy for cholesterol. Uh-huh. And he has bad cholesterol, so he sprinkles it on everything.
But meanwhile, some of these senior citizens are suffering from some form of memory loss.
Yes.
But this aroma takes them right back.
Yes, it does. Okay. It does. It often does. Some can't smell anymore. Okay. But when I give clues, they often guess what it is, and then I'll have them smell, and I'll just say, okay, try to remember this the next time. So I give them these blotters, and I'll say, this is a spice. It goes into pumpkin pie, apple pie.
So this is cinnamon.
This is cinnamon.
Okay, good.
I gave that away.
You know what this smells like? You know what this reminds me of?
What?
Going Christmas shopping with my daughter, because I go with my daughter to buy stuff for my wife, because I don't know what to buy. She knows better. And we go into these candle shops. And I'm in a mall right now at the Danbury Mall at a candle shop with my 24-year-old daughter telling me what to buy for her mother, and then I come off like I know what I'm doing.
It takes you to an experience.
It takes me right there.
And so what some of these women say, well, I used to bake pies, and yes, of course I use cinnamon.
Yeah.
So
that took me to a candle shop.
There you go. And that's what happens a lot of times, is that a smell will take you back to a memory within time. I always try to incorporate stories from my own life. Okay. Like for peach, it takes me back to my mother when I was living on a farm. My mother had us go into the kitchen and make jams and jellies. And so we used to get a bushel of peaches and make jams, and we all had our tasks to do. Okay. Someone would have to dip it into the boiling water, then someone have to take the skin off, and then we'd all fight over who gets the pit so that we could suck the juice off of the pits, right? Oh. And then my mother would put wax on top. So even the smell of wax, I'll never forget the smell of wax on top of the peach jelly. So this is a fruit.
It smells like licorice almost.
It's yummy. No, it's yummy. It's yellow on the inside, rough on the outside of the shell.
Oh, pineapple.
Yes, it's pineapple. And another clue would be it's an ingredient in a pina colada.
Yeah.
And so, I try to get them to also describe what they're smelling, so that they can try to verbalize. Okay. So I'll ask them, try to use any adjective that you can pull out. Right. Is it sweet? Is it sour? Is it floral? Is it fruity? And, they might be shy at first, and then after a while they'll start opening up.
Now, you were telling me before that there was one gentleman who was suffering from Alzheimer's or dementia, and he had a bit of a breakthrough. What happened there?
Well, that was, what a wonderful day, and I have to say I get so much joy when I have someone in the group that has a revelation, or or has a turning point. And there's a man that was at Atria in Stamford, and he didn't want to join the group at first. He would sit on the outside in his wheelchair, outside of our circle, in the wheelchair. And I would say, Jim, would you like to join us? No, I don't want to join, he says. And so one day I went over to him and I said, come on, smell this. What do you think about this smell? And I started giving him hints, and I said, it finally said it was lavender. And he says, I think I wore a fragrance back then with lavender. And so, of course, I started naming all these different fragrances that had lavender. I said Brut, English lavender. And then I said canoe, and he said to me, I didn't know you could wear a canoe. But with this smell, this is the real breakthrough smell that showed Jim's humor one day.
That's chocolate.
Oh, my gosh, it's good. And he said to me, I want to date the woman who's wearing this. And I looked at him and I said, oh, that's very sweet. And then he said, I used to date a celebrity. And I said, really? Who was that? And he said, Barbara Hershey. And I'm very gullible. I'm like, okay, it totally went over my head where he was going with this. And I said, oh, yes, Barbara Hershey. She was in that movie, Beaches, with Bette Midler. And I asked him, what did she wear as a perfume? Do you remember? And he said, chocolate. And I said, of course, Barbara Hershey chocolate. And so, after that session, I felt so proud of myself and of him, that he joined the group. He had fun. His humor came out. And I'm sure he had a ton of fun that day, and I sure did. But this is chocolate. So this is a great conversation piece, because who doesn't love chocolate? And chocolate is universal.
This is almost like the baking chocolate. Like when you think of baking, that darker cocoa chocolate.
It's dark chocolate. It's not the milk chocolate, it's dark chocolate. And I wanted dark chocolate because universally, more people eat dark chocolate than the milk chocolate. We might
I'm a milk chocolate guy, so I don't understand that. But okay.
Well, in Europe, it's mostly dark chocolate, in other parts of the world. But chocolate is a huge conversation piece because it is global. I don't know one country that doesn't eat chocolate.
Okay, so now the name of the company or the firm is the Scent Guru Group. We can't say that COM because it's non-commercial.
True.
So we're not selling anything here, but if one was to Google the Scent Guru Group, they might find more information about what you're doing.
They will find me.
And people and this thing with Alzheimer's is quite, big word, ubiquitous. That means everywhere. But I really sense that it's a prevailing problem with an aging population that we have. And I just think it's such a neat intersection between what you do with aromatherapy and how that can trigger memories that are fleeting at this point.
There's more than 5.5 million people with Alzheimer's, and it's going to grow. And if you think about it, the baby boomers, we're up there. I'm a baby boomer myself. It's going to be a flip of a pyramid, really. There's going to be more baby boomers than there are newborns. And it's an extremely expensive disease, and according to Alzheimer's.org, there are more than 18 million people who are taking care of their parents, their loved ones, and they're unpaid. And you can imagine the healthcare costs for people with Alzheimer's. It's extremely expensive, and it's only going to get higher. So with all the research that's going on, hopefully they can find a cure for Alzheimer's. This year on the 21st of June was what's called the longest day, and so I had 2 smelling sessions that day to help raise money for Alzheimer's research. And I had probably over 20 people in the 2 different sessions at 2 different places in Fairfield County.
Well, I can just tell from these pictures and these videos in your report that it means a lot to these seniors.
Yes, it does.
Coming, and if you can, even through aroma, take them back to a happier time and earlier childhood memory. It's really neat.
And conversation. It elicits, these smells elicit conversation. And so when you come up, when they smell a smell like, I call them essential smells, lilac. Lilac is a beautiful flower that so many people have had lilac bushes in their yards. I mean, last week I was with a group at the Riverdale Hebrew Home for the Aging in Riverdale, New York, in the Bronx. And there was a woman from Romania. And I had probably about 15 people in that group, and everybody started talking about lilac when I showed them lilac. They wanted to talk about it.
It's so distinct.
Takes them back to it's very distinct.
It takes me right back to my childhood home in the back. We had a lilac bush that was so big I could climb it like you'd climb a tree.
There you go.
It was like a big land, and I remember that smell. Listen, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And again, it's a Scent Guru group.
Yes.
Just Google that. If this is something that you think might help, by all means, get in touch with you, email
Thank you.
And I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.